Hello virtual fourth graders. This is the first video for you guys at home in fourth grade because the materials that we're using here with our students here are pretty specific to the project. So you can still do the project that we're going to have here. However, it's going to be slightly modified for you to fit your potential supply situation at home. The project we're going to work on is called an Ndebele house. And all of our projects that we're working on, third grade is working on the Maasai warrior shields. You guys will be working on the Ndebele houses, and the fifth grade are going to be working on African masks. So you get the theme. The theme is going to be Africa, so we study some cultures from different areas of our world. If you have a chance, please check out the videos of the Ndebele people that I posted to the playlist. Also check out the PowerPoint if you can. I don't know if your family has a computer that has PowerPoint on it, but if you do, you can check out that PowerPoint. And I still may try to see if I can change those slides into a movie so that you can watch that without PowerPoint. Anyways, a little history on the Ndebele people. Okay, the Ndebele are a tribe out of South Africa. Now, you probably don't know this, and maybe even your folks don't know this, but if they're old enough, not quite as old as I am, I know a lot of things from a long time ago, but if your folks are old enough, they know of something called apartheid. And apartheid happened to native African people in South Africa. And what it was a discriminatory practice, very similar to what we did to the African Americans, both during slavery and post-slavery. Okay, where we had things that were called the Jim Crow laws, and it restricted African Americans from like sitting at the counters in restaurants. There were separate water fountains. There were back doors that they had to use. So we had some issues with race, and we still do today, as our news every day shows us. Okay, but in South Africa, they had some pretty strict things going on with this thing called apartheid. Anyway, so there was how do I want to say this? The settlers called the Dutch, and they were known as the Boers. Don't ask me why, because I have no idea why they were called the Boers. They started placing restrictions on some of the native African people from South Africa. And they were pretty strict restrictions. And after the Boer War, from what I understand of history, after the Boer War, the remaining white settlers of South Africa imposed what was known as apartheid. And apartheid is very similar to the discriminatory practices that our country had against the African Americans here in our country. They weren't allowed certain rights. They couldn't go certain places. I believe they even had a curfew where they couldn't be out after a certain time. And they weren't allowed to live anywhere that they wanted. They had to live in certain parts of the country and certain parts of the city. So in a way, it kind of reflected a lot of what we did to our African Americans here in the U.S. Only I think this was just a little bit worse, possibly, and it lasted a lot longer too. This I think apartheid ended in like the late '80s or something like that, so a long time before you guys came around, but still well into the 20th century. Anyways, this tribe is called the Ndebele, and Ndebele, I'm not quite sure on that pronunciation. But what these people did is they figured out a way to not only protest apartheid, but also to communicate things that perhaps they weren't allowed to or were afraid to communicate in person for fear of being arrested or beaten or worse. So they used their homes as a method of communication. They used painted symbols on their homes as a way to communicate things like marriages, possibly anti-government type slogans. I don't really know. But because they were an oppressed people, they had to keep some of their communication secret. So one of the ways they did this was through the painting of symbols which had meaning on their homes. Okay, and if you know anything about African American history, African Americans did this too during the slave trade. Okay, one interesting fact is that African American slaves, not always, but in some places, weren't allowed to put headstones on the graves of their ancestors when they died. So one of the things they did is they built or made ceramic face jars. And these face jars would be placed on the graves instead. And the faces, as best the artist could render it, were supposed to be a representation of the person who had died. One of the other things that some African Americans did and still do to this day was quilting, making quilts and blankets. And in these quilts and blankets, there would be included symbols and even directions for not freed slaves, but runaway slaves to make it to the north, to how to get to the northern states where slavery wasn't a thing, or where it wasn't enforced. So I guess in the end, all oppressed people find ways around their oppressors, and they find ways to communicate in ways that they can. So they find, there's always a way around things, and that's what they did. They found ways to communicate to family and friends of certain events in their lives, and celebrations and tragedies, and their feelings about the government at that time. Okay, so I'm going to show you the project that the fourth graders are working on here. And again, if you really want this material, just drop me an email and I'll put together a small packet for you so you have all the same materials that we're working with here, except for the markers. The markers you're going to have to provide on your own. Or you could do it in colored pencil. I'd even take crayon if that's all you got. Okay, so in just a moment here, I'll show you that my example of an Ndebele home and what the fourth graders here at school will be working on. Okay, as promised, here is the Ndebele house that we're going to be building. You can see the symbols that I put on it. Okay, and these symbols were derived from this handout right here. There's a specific artist we're going to look at, and her name was Esther Malangu. So if you check out some of the videos that I put on the playlist, you'll see Esther. Esther is not a young lady by any means. She's quite old. I think she is 87, maybe even older at this point. But she is very well known and has actually been traveled around the world, gone to many different museums, been invited as a guest artist to recreate or create these South African symbols of the Ndebele people. Okay, so I'm just going to page through this really quick because I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this. So all of these different handouts have different Ndebele symbols. These will be available to you online, so I'm going to make sure I post these so that you can see them. This coming Thursday it should be. I don't remember what the date will be. But it's very simple. You can pick and choose out of any of these handouts. You can pick and choose any of the pieces of them. So you might, like I took this one. I took that symbol. Well, maybe I didn't. Oh, it's on my other one. That's why. I have two of these made. And I took this symbol right here, right there, and I put that on one of the example houses that I did. It's not on this one, but it's on my other one. I did do this kind of pattern symbol on one of them. I'm looking for the one I used for this particular house here, and I don't see it offhand. Let me just page through here and see if I see that symbol. I don't see it offhand. I know it's here. Let me see. There it is. This one right here. This particular symbol I put along the edge of my Ndebele house. So right around the top edge of the house. Okay, so you're welcome to use any bits and pieces out of any of these handouts to create your Ndebele home design. Okay, so in your situation, if you come in to get the materials, you'll be able to build this 3D mock-up of an Ndebele home. If you don't want to come in, then what we're going to end up doing is we're going to end up allowing you to make just a 2D, which means flat, version or drawing of an Ndebele house. And then you're going to use your artistic skills to incorporate some of these types of decorations into that drawing, and you'll be able to, meet the basic requirements of the project. So in just a moment here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how that project would be done if you did not come in to get this project. If you do come in to get the materials for this project, there will be a video available of how to do that project. The one thing I would apologize for is that video got really, really long. So please, especially the drawing part of it, feel free to fast forward through some of that because the video is very long. A lot longer than I ever planned, and probably the longest video I'm going to make all this year. We're still in a learning phase, so the first video was good and short, and then I think I started getting too in-depth on the other video, and it ended up being very, very long. So we're going to get started. I'm going to show you if you're going to stay at home and you're not going to come in to pick up the materials. That's what this video is for. There's a separate video called the 4th grade Ndebele house video, and that will also be available to you to check out, and you will be able to create this version of a 3D type house with the help of probably your mom and dad as well, because you may need to use some hot glue to hold that roof on, but the rest of the building you can certainly tackle on your own. Okay, so in just a moment I'm going to show you that drawn version of the assignment, and then you can kind of make up your mind which way you would like to handle this particular assignment for class. All right, thanks, and we'll see you in just a moment. Hello, fourth graders. This is the handout that the students here at school will be provided with. These images and handouts will also be available to you online. And as you go through these handouts, you're going to be able to see all of the symbolism you'll be able to use on your Ndebele house. Okay, again, you can pick and choose bits and pieces from one and combine them with others to form your designs. We are not aware of, nor are we, I guess, privy to the secret meanings of any of these items, so who knows? Maybe your house is going to have signs on it that says, please buy me a chicken or something. Who knows? Okay, we won't know. Okay, and I don't even know if any of these symbols have that actual authentic meaning behind them that Esther Malangu may have used on like the real home she did. These are more of a visual reference, I believe, but I could be wrong. So we'll never know, and Esther I don't think is going to tell us. Okay, so these handouts will be available online. Since you are away from school, if you don't choose to come in to get the materials to do the project in 3D, like the fourth graders who are here are doing, you're more than welcome to just do a 2D design. And as you go through these handouts, you're going to see that on one of the pages, I believe I made it the last page, there is a little handout that shows kind of an Ndebele style home. This is more probably a traditional home than they may live in now. But it's a general idea for what you could draw and how you could decorate it. You can see in this coloring page that they have Ndebele symbols, or the tribal symbols, on the home. So we're going to recreate this kind of a design or this kind of home on a regular piece of paper. And then we're going to use the handouts and symbolism in the handouts to create our designs on the house itself. So that's where we're headed with this video. Okay, our first step, of course, is to make sure you have the things you need. You're going to need a pencil. You're going to need an eraser. You will need some Sharpies, probably both thick and thin. You may need a compass. I don't know. You might. I don't know. You will definitely need some rulers because these designs are geometric, which means there's going to be a lot of straight edges on them, so you'll definitely need those. The handouts, make sure you have access to those either on a secondary device or just be able to flip from one screen to the other to look at those handouts and get ideas for how you're going to decorate your home. You, of course, will need a piece of paper. Since I know that you guys are somewhat limited in your supplies at home, I'm going to just do an 8.5 by 11, which is a standard copy size paper or copy paper size. So use what you got, do your best work. That's all we can ask. So I'm going to push this stuff aside and I'm going to begin by creating my Ndebele home. So I'm going to do this all in pencil so that I can make changes if I want to, or correct mistakes if I do make any. Which is possible because I'm a human and I can make mistakes too. I do it a lot. So you just don't see it because I correct them and I hide them. So the things I show you might look really good, but they're not perfect the first time. I can almost guarantee you that. So I hope you guys never feel intimidated by the things I show you, because I mean, if you ever ask me, I'll show you where I messed up. You know that. I show you where I made a mistake, because even grown-ups make mistakes. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at that handout. So I'm going to look at that design a little bit just to get a better idea of what their homes look like, because I don't remember just by looking at this for one time. So my handout's over here. I'm going to look at that handout and I'm going to kind of design my home. So it looks like I'm going to give mine a little sense of being round. So I'm going to start with a little curve. There's a mistake right there, but that's why we do it lightly in pencil, because I can erase that after I put my Sharpie on here. I'm going to do that design a little bit for the top of the house. So you notice I'm sketching it out very lightly in pencil because I'm going to go over this with Sharpie marker anyway. So I might as well sketch it out lightly in pencil. That way I can make changes to it and correct any mistakes that I may make, which you can see I already made one. So I'm going to go after that. I'm kind of copying that picture off the handout kind of closely, and that's okay if that's what you'd like to do. I certainly would not fault you for doing that. Unless you take the time to look on the internet for some ideas for some Ndebele homes. I know there are some that have square walls and they have gates. So again, this may not be, they may not necessarily live in these round huts anymore, but this is an easy shape to construct and draw. So we're just going to go ahead and use that to make our lives a little easier. So since I'm going to make it round, or try to make it look round, I have to make sure that my curves, the top curve and bottom curve, are both curved and not straight lines. I'm going to put a little background in here, maybe so it looks like it's actually sitting on the land. I'm going to put a little door in here, and now on the handout the door is rounded, so I'm just going to copy that. It's okay if you do, but we want to copy it in a way that's going to be nice looking. So I'm going to use a ruler for my straight lines. Please use a ruler for your straight lines. Okay, so you're not handing in things where it's all crooked and things like that. I'm going to look for some designs that I can place on here, and I'm going to divide the house up into, I think, 2 or 3 rows. Not quite sure yet. I think I'm going to do the same thing I did kind of with this one, where I had a kind of a border around the top, and then I did some larger designs around the base of the house. So I'm going to not really copy this 3D model, but I'm going to use it as a reference, sort of, so I kind of have an idea of what I'm going to do. So I'm going to put that border up here. This is going to be the border for the top design, or the border design around the top of the home. Another mistake. That's why we do it in pencil. Okay, so I'm going to do one kind of design up in here, and then I'm going to do some larger designs down here. So I'm not going to sit and drag you through this whole drawing process, so I'm going to speed it up a little bit here in just a minute, but I would like to just do some preliminary work up here so you get an idea of what I'm going to do. So one of the things I like about one of the houses that I made, as an example, was a zigzag pattern. So I'm going to do that zigzag pattern right up here in that border. So I'm going to go all the way around my house with that zigzag pattern. And I'm going to add some little decorations on that as well. So my expectation for you at home, of course, is that you are putting in some effort to create some very neat and intricate designs, or detailed designs, on your Ndebele home. Okay, I'm going to do that. I don't, oh wait, I do. I didn't think I had it, but I do have it. I'm going to put some small little dots in here, okay, as part of my design. So I'm using a compass. You may have to find something that has a small hole popped into it. Maybe you do have some stencils at home that you could use. That would be awesome as well. Okay, but whatever you find to do this, find something that you can use to trace, kind of as a stencil. Maybe your mom has some, maybe she does crafts or something, and she might have a stencil that you could use. You could use anything that has a hole punched in it, so maybe something out of your kitchen drawer might have something that has a hole in it. I'm going to do little squares in these. Now since this one goes around the corner, I'm just going to I'm going to fake that one in, and then I'm going to do this with the squares in the top ones. Make sure you can still see that. Okay, I'm going to make this line a little bit thicker just to separate it from the house and to hide my mistake a little bit maybe. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead, now at this point, since you saw me start this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some thatch in the roof to make it look like grass, because that's what their homes were made out of way back when. What I'm going to do down here is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to speed up the film, or speed up the video by using the time-lapse feature, so that you don't have to sit and just wait and wait and wait. If you do watch that other video that I did for the 4th graders, fast forward through a lot of that first part. I totally forgot to do that, and the video ended up being like an hour long, which is crazy. I just wasn't thinking. So rather than making this one an hour long, I'm going to speed up the process of creating these designs. And I might actually include the Sharpie all in that time-lapse for you, because after you're done drawing this in pencil, you're going to come back and Sharpie the whole design, and then we're going to erase any leftover pencil marks. So all of that might be included in the following time-lapse video. Okay, fourth graders. So now I have my design all outlined. One of the things you'll still see though are a lot of pencil lines. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to use an eraser and I'm going to erase all my leftover pencil lines. We always do this. If you think back to all the projects we've ever worked on, we always get rid of those pencil lines because they show through in the marker, or if you use colored pencil, you'll still see all that gray colored. So even unless that's something you want to have in a particular part of your drawing, you really want to get rid of that gray pencil marks. So I'm going to clean this drawing up. Obviously you can see where I missed some pencil marks. That's okay. That's part of art. Missing things and then just cleaning it up at the end. Okay, so one of the things I'm going to do is normally I'd probably color this whole thing in marker. But there's some effects I'd like to do up here. I'm kind of thinking about a sunset. That's why I put the sun in here. So I'm kind of thinking about a sunset color, but with not with Sharpie, but with Crayola markers. You really can't do like red, orange, and yellow. It's not going to blend very well. So I've decided I'm going to incorporate colored pencils into my work as well. So being at home, let's say you don't have a red marker. Use a red colored pencil, a red crayon if you have to. I really don't want you to use crayons, but with the situation being that it is, if crayons is all you got, use them. Okay, you won't get downgraded for it because obviously you're not here. You don't have access to all the supplies that we have here at school. And if that's all you got, that's all you got. Okay, so my idea for this is going to be to do some kind of sunset in the background, make my sun nice and red, make my trees black using a Sharpie marker. And then I'm going to decorate the house. The thatched roof is going to be a mixture of browns. The door will be a mixture of browns. One of the things you'll see in some of the videos is that their houses are whitewashed, which is they're basically painted white. A lot of them, I don't know about all of them, but the ones I've seen have been painted white. And one of the reasons for that, of course, is that their designs stand out much better. Okay, if their houses were brown and their designs were, whatever colors are made, they're not going to look as bright or as vibrant if the background of the work is brown. Now, in the past, a long time ago, they may have had the brown houses because in a lot of African cultures, if you remember back to third grade when we talked about the Maasai tribe and we looked at their homes and their villages, we talked about what their houses were made from. Do you remember? It's made from poop. Okay, but that may have been the case within the Ndebele tribe as well. But the modern homes are going to be kind of painted white and then also have very bright and colorful decorations, where in the past they may have been limited to certain colors that they might have gotten from vegetables, they might have gotten from the blood of their cattle, they may have gotten from spices or, browns for the dirt and the earth. So nowadays their houses tend to be white with very bright colors, so that's what we're going to work towards. Again, I'm not going to make you sit through this whole thing because it is going to take me a while. I'm figuring this is probably going to take me close to an hour just to do this tiny little drawing. And I'll put you through on the time lapse so that it comes through nice and quick for you. And you can see as I'm working kind of what my thoughts are. So initially though, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in some of that just so you can see me add some color to the project initially at least. Okay. Obviously, try not to go outside the lines. That may or may not be totally possible for me. I'm trying. And I'm going to have to, obviously, I'm going to have to sharpen my pencil over and over and over again because colored pencils gel out, unlike markers. Markers you don't have to sharpen. Okay, so I'm going to add that sunset as soon as I sharpen my yellow. Okay, so I'm going to start adding those sunset colors to my drawing. Starting out with yellow towards the bottom, and then I'm going to fade to orange, and then at the very top I'm going to do my darkest color, which is going to be a red. Now one nice thing about colored pencils is you can generally get a good blend of them. Not always, sometimes it depends on what the manufacturer of your colored pencil is or who it was and how much forgiveness they have as far as how they blend. So I'm just going to add some orange and then I'll put it through the time lapse so that you can see the project as it comes out. So you can see it's not blending very, very well just yet. but I am going to just kind of work it very lightly, and then I'm going to put some more pressure on the pencil to darken it up a little bit. So I'm starting out very light pressure on the pencil, adding some more pressure as I get that orange to be a deeper orange. I kind of want it orange up here by the sun because my sun is going to be yellow, so I don't want yellow and yellow. I want to be able to see my sun clearly. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more pressure right here, just to get it a little bit darker. So very little pressure there, and then as I go towards that towards the bottom of that tree, I'm adding more and more pressure to get that orange to be darker and darker and more bold. And then I'm going to just continue that dark orange up here, which will then eventually turn into red. If you're working on your mother's kitchen table, please make sure you have a second set of paper down here so that you don't get yelled at for leaving marks all over her table, or your dad's table, whoever's table you may be working on, grandma's, whoever. Just make sure you protect whatever you're working on so that your mom, dad, grandma, or your grown-up, I should say maybe, your grown-up that's home with you does not get upset with something you've done. Okay, so at this point, again, I don't want to spend a ton of time watching you or making you watch me color. So I'm going to put this through the time lapse, which will save tons of time on your end, and I'm going to color this entire thing. So I'm going to go from start to finish and get it colored and ready for you to view. So just give me 1 minute. Okay, fourth graders, here's the finished and completed project. Obviously, I'm a grown-up, so I've done a lot more detail than I might expect from you. I certainly expect the best that you can do, and if it turns out like this, all the more power to you for being a hard worker and a very much learning and growing artist. I use colored pencils. Even though I had a choice, I could have done it all in markers. I got plenty of markers. Okay, but I did have a choice. So due to some of the things I wanted to happen, I used colored pencils in my sky to get a blend from yellow to red. I chose colored pencils for the dirt and the ground because I had more selection of browns in colored pencils than I did in markers. So I wanted to have a whole bunch of different colors of browns. I also did the same thing here for the thatched roof. Chose to do silhouettes for the trees because I wanted my time of my picture to be sunset. I did keep my building white. I used markers for the decorations. I did a lot of like little triangular designs, some of their traditional designs. Looked at the handout for some of these designs here. So please use all the resources available to you. Do your best work. That's all we ever ask, and all we can ask of you is to do your best work with the supplies that you may have at home. And can't wait to see your work. Have a good day.